Hello there, dear viewer, and welcome to the October edition, the 4th episode of Metal Albums with Birds on the Cover. That's the music highlight show I've been doing now for a while, where I look at some music releases from the past month, albums specifically that tend towards metal, or in fact are metal, and they have a bird somewhere on the cover. That is the stated goal of this show, and I'm happy to bring you another nice month with a pretty decent chunk of varied metal music, and a couple which maybe doesn't quite fit the definition of metals, but that has birds on them, so that's good. Today, I don't have a live concert review like I've had the last couple of episodes to provide you. Didn't go see anything live in October, but I thought I'd drop a fun little trivia question for you folks, and it concerns the big four of thrash metal. That is, of course, Anthrax, Megadeth, Metallica, and Slayer. These four bands are considered quote-unquote the big four of thrash metal. Now, in purposes of this show, which band do you think has the most album covers with a bird included on the cover? I'll give you a minute to think here. Not a minute. I'll give you like a few more seconds to think. Megadeth, Anthrax, Slayer, Metallica. Big names. Which one wins on this show, quote unquote? Which one fulfills this show's goal the best by having the most birds on their covers? Alright, that's all the time I'm giving you. Now, if there was someone among you who thinks that this is a trick question, you are 100% correct. None of them have a single bird on any of their album covers. Now, admittedly, for this, I'm always talking about their main, full LP album releases. If they have... I didn't start hunting through all of their bloody singles and compilations and everything. So if there is a bird hidden there, please do let me know in the comments. And if I somehow manage to miss a bird on the covers of their main albums, also do let me know that. But no, none of these darn thrash reprobates actually have the temerity to put a bird on their cover. The single best thing, the one thing I could come up with is Megadeth's newest album, The Sick, what the heck, I gotta look it up again, The Sick, the Dying, and the Dead. You will notice in this sort of Victorian plague nightmare world image, might be taking some Bloodborne vibes. You will notice a couple of plague doctors in the background, and plague doctors, of course, have a mask designed to resemble a bird's beak. So that's pretty much the only thing I could come up with. Really, Dave Mustaine? You couldn't put, some carrion birds in this picture with all these dead people in it? You put a couple of dogs there in the background. Now, the very astute among you might quickly, challenge me here real quick by pointing out that, wait a second, Slayer rather famously has their logo with a big eagle on it, the Slayer swordgram thing with the eagle in the background. And you are correct, that is a famous Slayer logo. It's not on any of their actual album covers. If their album covers have the logo, it will be Slayer with that circle and the pentagram of swords, or it'll just say Slayer on it. Or in some cases, there's no titles on it, it's just an image. So this is, yes, I was thinking about that, Slayer's probably gonna get quite a few numbers on the board thanks to that famous logo of theirs. And I was bemused and then just kind of flabbergasted when I went through their whole discography and no, that doesn't actually show up anywhere there. Again, unless there's some kind of re-release of one of their albums where they decided to sneak the eagle logo in. Once again, let me know if that's the case. Now, this was the big four of thrash metal, but of course, the big four of thrash metal is an entirely subjective chosen by the metal community, like appellation. It's not like a set in stone thing. There is, of course, lots of discussion of like if there was a fifth member of this group, who would be the like big five one. And indeed, of course, there's debate on if even like these four, deserve to be the big four. Like if maybe there should be a different representative there. And there's a couple of names that always come up in these discussions that like who should be here. I think Testament is the number one candidate for the fifth member of the then to be big five. And I think something like Exodus or it's okay, I gotta get this right. Death Angel is the thrash band and Morbid Angel is the death band. I'm pretty sure. So yeah, so yeah, like I think it's like Testament, Exodus, Death Angel are like some of the names usually tossed around for the possible fifth member. I'm gonna go a little bit off the path here because I'm gonna be super subjective with my show here because one of my favorite acts is Canada's amazing thrash band Annihilator by Jeff Waters. And I do realize that, like, apparently Canada has its own big four of thrash, which Annihilator is a part of, with, like, Razor and a couple of others whose names I can't remember. But, if we were to consider that this big four of thrash were to allow a fifth member that was, like, international and not just, like, America, I'm just going to be super subjective here with my own taste and say that I would want Annihilator to be in there. So, with, 19 albums, I'm pretty sure, is what they have main releases. I was like, please, tell me that Annihilator at least has an album cover with some birds on it, so I can at least feel good about that. And I'm happy to report that, yes, I found one album from them, 2013's release, Feast. Has this picture of a zombie apocalypse going on it, and unlike Megadeth's effort, there's some carrion birds on there. There's one on the traffic light there, and there's one right there between the logo and the head of the main zombie. So good job, Annihilator. You actually managed to beat out the big four on this criteria, and I'm gonna say Annihilator, based on this incredibly well-researched and peer-reviewed method of examination, deserves to take the spot of one of the big four of thrash metal. That's the metal albums with birds on the cover official stance. That Annihilator belongs in the big four instead of one of the other current big four. But yeah, that's all for the intro today. I hope you had a good time with that. I certainly was like, that's interesting. I was going into it expecting to find one album among those four thrash legends to nominate, and the best I could do was the Plague Doctors in Megadeth's album. Well. Let's get on with the actual show proper and cue up the first album that I listened to this month and what I thought about it. Check it out! Alright, we kick off this month with Adamantra, which I only now realized when I was prepping this episode that it's probably a portmanteau of adamantium and mantra. So, okay, that's kind of cool. And they are coming out with their third album, Act 3, Pareidolia of Depravity. Now, I'm sorry to the band and those attached, but I'm going to have to roast the title of this album a little bit before we get into the nitty-gritty. Act 3, Pareidolia of Depravity. So, Pareidolia is it's that mental thing where the human mind sees faces in random inanimate objects or shapes, like start seeing faces. Well, it's really any sort of like recognizable pattern in chaos where there really isn't any, but faces are the most common example. The look at a tree you know, the look at a cutout of a tree and the like little tree branch marks like form like an eye and a face and something, that kind of thing. I don't know why this album is called that. Certainly, there's no weird pattern in this album cover which would come off as a face. The only person with their face towards us literally has no face here. This ring wraith on the left. So, this is just. Why is this album called this? What the heck? Like, I am convinced that the band just had, like, some kind of word of the day calendar that they got, like, a couple of really good words from, like, ooh, Depravity. Oh, Pareidolia. Hey, guys, you know what we could do? And then that happened. Now, for the purposes of this show, I almost overlooked this album for this show. Like, I took a look at this at one point, this album cover, like, it doesn't look like there's any birds there, but I'm incredibly grateful that I came back to check it, just like, is there really no birds in this forest? And there is. There, on the right, top right, underneath the big A. It really blends into the forest, but there absolutely is an owl on that tree branch. That's like almost like trying to spot an owl in real life, like how it blends into the forest. That's kind of awesome. I think it's a boreal owl. It's a little hard to tell again with the coloring and the dark shading on top, but that's my guess. It doesn't look big nor angry nor pointy-eared enough to be like an eagle owl, so. I'm going with boreal owl for my guess on what that guy is there. And yeah, I mean, apart from that, this is a really cool album cover. I do think it's pretty neat. Lack of Pareidolia notwithstanding, I think it is in some way a bit of a by the numbers power metal album cover. Of course, like a nature shot done in like this very like high fidelity painting style. Really high contrast between light and dark here, and kind of fairy tale looksies here. You know, Gretel's all alone being menaced by this ring wraith in the forest, but it's pretty competently done. It looks cool. The forest is really evocative. The juxtaposition's pretty basic here, but like it does its job. I do wonder, like looking at that owl again, how it's positioned opposite the ring wraith. On both sides of this girl, like, is it some kind of like, opposite force to the ring wraith? Is that the like, vibe of this image? Like the ring wraith is preying on this lone girl in the woods, and then the owl is some kind of more protective guardian thing. I don't know. I might just be applying my own biases for birds into this owl's character. It might just be an owl in the forest, like, what the heck is going on here? But, yeah, also, I'm very glad that I listened to this album because it's something. It is interesting. The first impression that it's like, because this just screams power metal from like a kilometer away, seeing this album cover, I'm a little bit like, and how cheesy is it going to be? And the first song, Treacherous Valor, like, boots up, and it's... got like the opening has like a harp in it, and I think like some like, I don't know, like a xylophone, like a really kind of goofy keyboard sound, like it's got like a really fairy tale goofy sound. Like, okay, here we go. Then the guitars come in, and they're actually a lot darker than I'm anticipating. It's pretty like intense. The opening song, and it's also a slow track too. Like they open up with a kind of like a slow, heavy lead in. Vocals are also like deeper than I thought. Now there is more power metal wailing at times on this album, but it is definitely not the most egregious example, and it's very restrained, and the bass is very strong throughout the album. Really pops in there. So it just has like a surprisingly heavy vibe to it, this album, that like really like got me going like, huh, okay, well. I'm especially happy that the first song actually trails off on a bass solo. I do love that they actually give the bassist that much love on the very first song on the album. Second song boots up Charade of Cruelty, and now it's like a real like pumping high speed like song. Still like now more power metal, still surprisingly heavy vibes. And now I got the feeling from the kind of, the keyboards get a little cheesy at this point, but they're the best kind of cheese because it definitely sounds like it's taking vibes from 90s RPG soundtracks. Like Nobuo Uematsu's Black Mages comes to my mind a lot of times when listening to this album, and I'm like, that's awesome. So it's a little corny, but it definitely could be boss music in a turn-based RPG from the Super Nintendo or PlayStation, and that is always a huge feather in my cap. I would love to ask the keyboardist which one is his favorite Final Fantasy. And I think the ostentatious album like name and kind of the cover like set me up for something a little more by the numbers. But this is more impressive than I thought. It takes progressive vibes this as much as it takes power metal. Like it has a lot of richness to it. Like I would say that it like fans of Dream Theater will find something to enjoy in this album just as much as fans of Halloween is my vibe. I will say, I think, even though the progressive vibes do come strongly, I think the album is a little bit too long for its own good at 55 minutes. I kinda lost track there towards the end of the album. I kinda lost my attention. It lost me a little bit. And the final song, a humongous 11-minute long, like, mega progressive epic, got my attention, but in a bad way, because it's got, like, halfway through the song, it's got, like, this cheesy, acted out, like, story, dialogue about a girl being kidnapped by some creepy child kidnapper. Like, it starts with a 911 call by a worried mother, and it, like, goes through all these, like, phases, while there's, again, really Dream Theater inspired intense guitaring and keyboard wangling in the background, and it was just, that was too much. That was cheesy in a not like, it's not super well acted, and that was just cheesy in a not like pumping way. Like that took me out of it, especially because, like, again, it's like a 911 call and there's like detectives. It like, actually, it's not a fantasy situation like the album cover implies, which means that this album cover is like maybe like some kind of metaphor. I guess that since it's Act 3, the band is trying to tell some kind of story, but I just kind of fell out of it pretty hard once like that hit me at the end. It's a part there at the end of the album, so it's not the worst thing in the world, but like it took me out a little bit. So yeah, but still, like, really, really good time, and I'm really happy that I managed to spot this as suitable for the show, because Adamantra, something to watch, I think, if you're in these circles. I'm certainly like happily impressed with this band, even if like they lost me a little bit by the end there. So big recommend from me. Next up for us, it is Escuela Grind and their third album, Dreams on Algorithms, which is some pretty hard-hitting grindcore coming at ya, pounding into you for 1 second off of 30 minutes. I think that's really funny that they squeaked into less than half an hour for an album. Funny that. So there's two candidates in this riot of an image. Boy, this thing is crazy, huh? There's two creatures in this image that I would say that allow this album cover to be featured on this show. The first one that really pops out is near the top left of the image. You can see this blackbird-like creature. And it alone, I would have really struggled, like, do I allow this album cover on the show? Because that looks like a really weird bird. Like, its beak doesn't look right. It almost looks like there's a horse's jaw attached underneath its head, you know? And it's also, its feet don't really look like feet. They look more like humanoid hands grasping at things. But if you look a little bit down from that, below that bird thing, there's a little revolver, and next to that revolver on the right, there's what definitely looks like a pigeon head. And that thing, I think, is enough, definitely, to allow this album to be featured on the show. Now, it does look like a pigeon which has had all of its feathers plucked off, or maybe it's a pigeon with a weird coloration, hard to tell, but I'm gonna say that's okay. That's good enough. So yeah, this album cover is pretty insane. I do like it. Like, it's the art style is fascinating, and the imagery is pretty kooky. There's some interesting details there. I struggle to tell if this is actually AI generated. Now, for sure, this band is there's a lot of social commentary here from a grindcore band. No way. But yeah, there's a lot about specifically about algorithms, social media, stuff like that. There is like stuff like that slept in there, and the way that algorithms affect us. So I kind of wish that this was, though, made by a human, though. Just like a human, like a person decided to make this insane mashup that's supposed to emulate the feel of, like, insanity that a generative AI creates, you know? Because, like, even if it's, like, supposed to be, like, you know, commenting against that kind of thing, I wish that, like, an actual generative AI wasn't used here, you know? Does that make sense? You know? Just like letting the human mind go nuts and, like, free drawing weird stuff here is what I'm kind of hoping for. You know, because again, the freaking bird creature I was mentioning, like, yeah, like, that is something that an AI might, like, a poorly programmed generative AI might be like, well, let's stick a horse jaw on this bird and give it human hands instead of feet. So, yeah, I don't know. Color choices are really cool, obviously. Like, it's got this, like, what is it, like old like kind of trade paperback, like pulp journal image, you know, kind of the coloration here. So and there is funny stuff here to find, all sorts of weird things and objects and creatures. So it's a lot to take in, and I do like the weird little red tech lines all over the place, kind of highlighting stuff. You may of course notice all over. I think that's really cool because it's very subliminal, which feeds in with the commentary about the effect of algorithms on our lives. You know, because it's like a subliminally, like, marking out objects in this image and, like, you know, implying that, like, you know, underneath there's this machine organizing these things. But yeah, despite that, like, again, I'm very contingent on, I really hope that this was made by a human, this image, you know, because that otherwise it'd be kind of like, oh, darn it, if, like, it really was just an AI allowed to go wild on making this weird mashup. Now, the music itself, I had a really good time listening to this. Like, surprisingly good, I will say, because I think grindcore is just a little too intense for a pansy guy like me, you know. It's just so aggro normally, that music, and this is definitely pretty aggro. Definitely, you know. I think it was fascinating. The very last song opens with, like, one line from the singer, like, she does clean vocals there for a second. I was like, oh, okay, interesting. Like, and then the rest of the song, more just really harsh, you know, vocals from her, which is, it's fine, but, like, I was like, huh, this is an interesting little drop for that final song there after 9 previous songs just pounding away with, like, aggro. But no, I think this one is, you know, because grindcore is like hardcore punk, just, like, taken to its logical extreme, you know, really. And I think the punk roots definitely bleed through when listening to this. It's every song is, again, super aggressive, but, like, I felt like almost all of them begin with an initial oral assault, but then they do slip in something that gets your head bobbing, you know? Like, I definitely, like, thought they were, like, then catchy, like, kind of bouncing riffs and, like, pieces in the songs if you let them play out, which meant that, like, I definitely did have a good time listening to this album, even if, like, the initial reaction is that this quite isn't what I'd go for. So, like, this band, like, I wouldn't be running out to see them alone, if they were playing live, but probably not. But I definitely, if I was at like a festival and they were one of the acts there, I would definitely try to see them at in that case, like just to get a glimpse of this act live. I'm pretty happy with Escuela Grind's, well, grind. Also, I do have to shout out song number 7 called Scorpion. It is definitely about Mortal Kombat. The lyrics definitely like lean in on. They just progressively get more and more reference heavy after some, very vague about just fighting and being like really like, beat down and everything. But they just very slyly just keep ramping up Mortal Kombat references, and then finally they do shout "Get Over Here" repeatedly at the end of the song. So that song was a real banger. Might be my favorite just because of that. I really appreciate it. Hey, the 90s movie had Napalm Death on its soundtrack, so it tracks, So, yeah. Pretty cool album. I had a good time. Grand Magus. Grand Magus? Sunraven? Yes, that's right. It's the classic Swedish 3-piece metal outfit Grand Magus coming out with their 9th album, Sunraven. And boy, do they have a fantastic album cover here that instantly when I saw this, I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be talking about this on the show. Fantastic. So yeah, of course, big Raven here, the titular Sunraven, pretty front and center here underneath the logo of the album title there, flying towards what I guess is the sun. I don't know. So in general, this album cover just slaps in my mind. I love it. I'm easy to win over with like some good Norse Viking imagery. I am a sucker for that. But Grand Magus isn't like a Viking metal outfit as we consider it now. No. That's a different ballpark entirely. A new Ensiferum album came out like, just this month as well, around, I think, the same time as this album. So if that's what you're looking for, go over there. But for this show, we're talking about Grand Magus, which is way more classic new wave metal, new wave of traditional heavy metal vibes, and or like doom metal is the influence here. So I think the image is fittingly closer to those vibes, but still having this Viking thing going on. Like, I really love the kind of simplified imagery. It's like, it's cool that it's like the clouds are made with like little dots, little pointillism there, and the scratchy look on the ocean and the mountains, certainly. But what I mean is like it's not like a super grand fantasy painting. It's like some pretty simplified images here, and also like not quite psychedelic, but the weird sun imagery here is fascinating, and it's casting like this perfect triangle of light, like whoa. And the color choices, these like setting sun hues here, fascinating, since it's you think sun is going to be like a bright shine, but it's like a setting sun motif here, which I suppose goes with a raven, which is a very dark bird, rather than a, bright and glowing bird. So, like, there's a lot of layers to this art that I like, and this is a real killer of a album art cover. And I'm happy to report that the music itself is pretty great, too. So, as I mentioned, there's a 3-member band here that just comes out of the gate with like a really juicy, really groovy riff with their first song, Skybound. And that is really the theme that continues here. The vocals of the singer have a bit of a southern metal vibe to it. He's got a bit of a twang in his voice, So like something like Blackstone Cherry is what comes to my mind, but definitely a more classical sound in the actual guitar work here. It's not quite doom metal, but there's often times that it leans into doom metal. More often, it's just like some really fantastic riffage with a simple 3-man band of like some really, really catchy riffs coming out at you at like some mid-speed songs. A couple of slower ones in there to give a variety, And there's like a very interesting, the one fast song in here, Hour of the Wolf, the 6th song, actually has very strong vibes of early Iron Maiden. Like, it could be a song that would have come out in the Number of the Beast era. Like, that's the energy there. So even with their one like fast song, they're like delivering some really juicy goodness in there. So yeah, once again, I have to admit, my first time listening to this band, 30 years almost it's been active now, but this is some really fantastic work here, and this was a delight to listen to, so this is a big up from yours truly. Next up, we're serving Jewel Throne, a Finnish thrash metal band with their debut album, Blood Vultures. How interesting. This is, I think, the first, like, that we can honestly call a thrash metal band being repped here on this show. It's on the episode where I decided to yammer in the intro about the big four of thrash metal. Funny how that goes. But, yeah, this is, of course, another real corner case, since there isn't any actual bird in this image, but a bird is being evoked in the imagery, so I decided to let it go, because last month, when we did Where's My Bible, I allowed them and their album with the bird-masked cultists, and obviously a bird is being evoked by this sort of medieval warrior here. Apart from the album called Blood Vultures, you can tell that like the face mask is supposed to evoke a bird's beak, and the mantle on this warrior is covered in feathers, so we have very much a vulture-ish look going on with this guy. It's a cool piece of art. I definitely like it. It's simple but effective. It's got a strong contrast between the real dark void there, coupled with the simple color scheme. The red splatters add a nice little touch of violence to the image. And I think the fact that the guy is cradling a giant eyeball is a really fascinating imagery. I don't know what that signifies, but it's pretty neat. There's a couple of problems with this image, personally, I feel like, is whatever the heck that object behind the guy's right shoulder, so on our left, looking at the image, I have no idea what that's supposed to be, and, it's a little bit hard to tell. It's being obstructed by the band logo, so maybe it would be easier to tell what the heck that's supposed to be, but right now it's just a big, indescribable mess. And in fact, my other issue is that the logo of the band really clashes with this image. I suppose that's not really anything out of the ordinary with a band logo, like the band name, but it can easily stick out, and that's kind of the purpose, so you recognize the band name. But something about this one is really egregious, the way it's like this purple flat font and this jewel logo in the middle. Like, I think it literally clashes in a not nice way with the rest of the image. The Blood Vultures text at the bottom, it's kind of distressed the same way as the image, so although it sticks out, it's also kind of on brand. The band logo, less so. Alright, this music, I don't actually have a lot to say about it because I didn't find it a super interesting album. It's some pretty aggressive thrash metal coming in your face all the dang time. The vocals are actually really harsh, so I was kind of leaning on, like, wait a second, this is actually a bit more death metal. The vocals, I'd say, are death metal-ish, but I did really quickly, just as a primer, look up like a little bit of like thrash metal versus death metal, just to confirm that, yeah, okay, the guitars are not quite as down-tuned as death metal, and it's just got that like little bit of punkish vibe to the just mega fast guitaring in this music. So I think, yeah, thrash metal is appropriate, but you have to expect some harsher vocals than maybe some of the other fare. I mean, of course, thrash metal has pretty harsh vocals, but I mean like the straight up growls. Some straight up death growls at times in these songs, excuse me. And yeah, it's relentless assaulting with some thrash metal guitaring, It's pretty impressive, but I struggle to find any like song that stuck out of all of it. It's a bit of an issue with these like mega aggro albums that I've of course admitted to like not jiving entirely myself, but this is a case where it didn't really grab me super hard, any of the songs. There was like one song somewhere halfway through the album which had like some really great like kind of groovy riffs into it, like, you know, a little bit of variety in all the but otherwise it's like some pretty damn straightforward. Maybe that's what you're after, sure. Maybe I'm not thrash enough myself, I'll admit that, but for me, could have used a little bit of more of an identity of its own instead of just pounding on and on with its thrash assault here. I don't know. Okay, so this next album can't in really any good conceivable way be considered metal, so if you are very much insistent on just wanting to hear about metal music, do jump to the next album review, so scroll forward a few minutes. But if you are morbidly curious, let's talk real quickly in between here about Kids in Glass Houses and their 5th album, Pink Flamingo, the first one they've done in 11 years. This is a Welsh alternative rock band. I was led to believe that this was going to be some kind of pop-punk band, so I was maybe expecting something a little bit more pumped up, a little less dreamy, and I was confused when I listened to it, so yeah, okay, but I listened to it, so let's talk about it here in between. First of all, the album cover obviously is Pink Flamingo, and there is, in fact, a big old flamingo dead center in the screen. Really good. Good choice of bird, looks cute. I like it. I like that it's on a little pedestal here. Apart from that, the color choices are pretty fantastic in this image. The primary colors of red and blue and yellow, and they all got like a bit of a pastel color to them, pastel shading. So it's like stark and simplistic, but also kind of eye-catching. I like that the band logo, or the album title and band title are set up like some kind of movie. And it's Pink Flamingo, an album by Kids in Glass Houses. This whole thing has like a, I don't know, some kind of like 80s postmodern, what's the pop art maybe is the right term, like kind of vibe to it, and that's kind of fun. And 80s is what the music is itself. I won't deny that I did have a good time listening to it, because it's like a lot of 80s worshipping kind of simple dreamy rock music. So there's some fun like electric drums occasionally, that kind of do sound, and then there's the kind of dreamy longing guitar playing that really evokes some kind of 80s nostalgia shot. It was fun music to have on the background while listening to it and doing some chores here in the house, but I didn't really, I don't know. There was one funky song in the middle that was kind of fun, so that was a really good. But that's the whole thing. That's the whole vibe of this album. It was fun background music, but I didn't exactly. I didn't feel like anything this here would become something that I listen to regularly. Not really. I don't know. And at no point does the intensity of the music ever get to anything resembling music appropriate for this show, so I think I've given this album enough time. Let's go to let's jump onto an actual proper metal album next, shall we? Alright, check this one out then. Righto, let's check this out. It's Malasorte, a one-man black metal outfit from here in Finland, made by a guy called Jalzoroth. This is their debut album that came out now in October, and as you can see, this band is being featured on the show thanks to that raven there in the logo of the band. So this is, once again, an example of a band where the band logo has the bird in it. And as we know by now, that's not cheap. That's a clever way to get on the show. Outside of that, I love this cosmic scape here. The muted color choice of just like shades of blue is very brave. It's like at the same time cosmic, but also kind of like a little psychedelic with the way like it's supposed to evoke a nebula, I assume, in the cosmos. That forming this human face in it. It's a lovely imagery, sort of thing that I really go for. The one thing that I think kind of doesn't work in this image is the choice of font on the title of the album, Apex Sovereignty. It's kind of got like this 60s road diner font look to it that I don't think quite matches the vibes of this picture or the music. So, what are you gonna do? The music itself, it's pretty straightforward black metal, so it's launching at you with some really relentless drumming, with some moments of calmness every once in a while, but mainly just like blasting you with some really aggressive drumming and some really intense guitar work that is oft-times menacing and also, it's oft-times aggressive, obviously, and also like a little bit of a menace and kind of, there's a cosmic vibe from the image here, and the guitar work also like gives like this kind of menacing, haunting vibe to it as well at times, so kind of cool. I do have to say, a lot of these straightforward black metal bands, and why I don't really jive is that it all kind of does bleed into itself a little bit in my mind. I would have to listen to this album a couple of times to really start picking up on differences. First go, just kind of felt like one song went from the other and the thing was kind of similar. The final 8-minute piece, Crowned in National Majesty, seemed, a bit more of a progressive work, so I enjoyed that, and a couple of like nifty like guitar riffs all over. Like it's pretty well done, but like didn't feel remarkable. Also, I do have to say that I thought I don't think the vocals are very good in this. I think again going for that cosmic theme, Jalzaroth does like this. There's a filter over the vocals. Like it's your standard, shrill kind of black metal scream, obviously, but there's like a lot of like filter there to make it sound all wispy and echoey and distant, which just kind of makes it all a bit blurry and kind of mixes in with the music a little bit too much. So I don't think it was a very good choice. And the fifth song, Behind Closed Doors, like Jalzaroth tries to do like a bit more of a not spoken word, but like more of a build-up in the kind of vocals into like the black metal screaming, like with like a little bit more of like a more menacing regular voice, and with all those filters on, it just kind of comes off rather corny. So yeah, I don't know, this wasn't something that really left a mark in me, this album, unfortunately. I'm curious to see, I find it fascinating that Jalzaroth has a second one-man black metal thing going on called Valontuoja, which is having another album coming out that project's first album, is coming out in November, which is also a black metal band, and it's not going to be on the show for the purposes of this show. It doesn't, no birds on it. I think there's some specs that could maybe be birds, but nah, I don't think it really matches the vibe. But I am going to have a listen to that because it's got a more naturalistic theme, the album cover, and the lyrics, I guess, are going to be in Finnish by the looksies of it. I mean, the band and album names are in Finnish. So I will see if that maybe jives with me better, but this effort on Malasorte didn't leave a lasting impression on me, sadly. How much, Kennedy? Myles Kennedy. Okay, that joke is not only stolen from Mystery Science Theater 3000, but it also only would work if the guy's name was Myles O. Kennedy, so I'm sorry, whatever. Anyway, it is Myles Kennedy with his third album, The Art of Letting Go. Myles Kennedy is the vocalist and rhythm guitarist for the alternative metal band Alter Bridge, but he, in the last decade, he's decided to branch out into some solo work as well, and he has made a third solo album, which you are hearing here. This album cover is a real Where's Waldo if you want to go and hunt for the birds that qualify it for our show, but they're there, trust me. The most obvious one, which definitely qualifies this album cover for this show, is a snowy owl you will find in the top middle of the image, like almost dead center top there. And, that's a lovely little example there, so easy, shoe in there. There's a couple of slightly more spotty ones there that I still think would have allowed this image to pop into the show despite that. To the right of the snowy owl, you can see some kind of screaming bird. It's a little stylized. I think it's like some kind of like a vulture, maybe, because it looks bald. A little bit more abstract, but definitely still a bird, so that's also great. In addition, kinda down from the owl quite a ways, you can see another bird, which I'm having trouble to tell if it's another vulture or it might be like a corvid, is kind of poking out, looking at the viewer. It's if you look at the Art of Letting Go text there at the bottom, it's above the art of part, a little bit above. So also, a little hard to tell, but definitely is a bird. That same bird is repeated in the bottom left corner, just, if you really want to check. Like, there's some repeating motifs here. In general, I think this is a pretty cool album cover. It's quite a riot, a Where's Waldo picture, as I mentioned, because there's all sorts of silly things to find. But the juxtaposition of white, red, and blue is really nice here. There's 3 color elements really strong here. The overall shading, like there's a little blue filter over everything that kind of gives it a shared muted vibe, though. It's kind of fun. And the details, it's crazy. There's eyeball flowers, octopi, snakes, skeletons, all kinds of crazy stuff. Really fun imagery here, and I dig it. The real, seems to be the real focus here. There's a little door underneath that snowy owl, which some kind of giant eyeball is peeking out of a bloodshot eye. I think that's supposed to be the kind of real feature detail here, since that door motif does not repeat anywhere else in the image. But it's a little bit buried in there. I do think that might be the point, though, so I'm not saying that that's an issue with the image. It's pretty cool. Yeah, I really like this album cover. The music itself, though, got me at the start, and then I fell pretty quickly. So Alter Bridge I only mainly really know for making the theme song of professional wrestler Adam Copeland, better known as Edge. His best theme song, of course, is Metalingus by Alter Bridge. The pop-off at Royal Rumble 2020 when Edge came back and, first you think you know me, and then the opening riff to Metalingus. It's not the opening riff, sorry, because it's in the middle of the actual song, but the opening riff of the arrangement of Edge's theme song version comes on. Really fantastic stuff. So that's a really good song. Otherwise, I haven't listened to a ton of Alter Bridge or Myles Kennedy's other work, I suppose, so I don't have a huge impression of them. This album started reminding me of what I've listened to of Alter Bridge. It had a bit of an alt metal vibe to it, some interesting maybe slightly grungy riffs coming at you. It started to really quickly fall into way more of a southern rock territory, rock in general, and then a lot of ballads. It seems to me half this album seems to be really emotional ballads, which means, how much does this fit this show after all? Color me a little bit surprised by the vibes here, but yeah, after a couple of really strong showing riffs there, and I think maybe like the first ballad that really got through at you. Which one was it? "Miss You When You're Gone," or was "Mr. Downside" the third song already? I don't remember anymore. But at least the fourth song, like okay, well this one's pretty sappy, but it's got me. But it kept happening, and like my interest meter waned. So no, I don't know if I can actually recommend this. I might recommend the couple of single songs off of here. The title track, "Art of Letting Go," the kind of single track, "Say What You Will," those are pretty strong at the start. And a couple of songs near the end are pretty neat. But overall, you kind of have to sign up for like some more easy listening southern rock vibes rather than like some pretty intense. Certainly, if you're like me and your strongest Alter Bridge impression is, again, really pounding Metalingus, this doesn't really go for that vibe, this album. So be careful going into this one then. And that was it for October's serving of metal albums with birds on the cover. I hope you folks enjoyed it and found something interesting to listen to in the mix once again. It was a pretty good mix-up here. There was some really heavy music in there, and we got something a little bit lighter there with power metal, prog metal, and some more classic traditional doomy metal. And then there was a couple of albums which really shouldn't maybe have been here, didn't really fit the format, at least on the metal front. I was just thinking there was also one album with that bird or vulture themed Viking guy who didn't really fit the theme with the bird front. It's just a guy who kind of looks like a bird, but whatever. That was honest to goodness trash metal. But yeah, the freaking two albums here were a little pushing it, and not just a little with the kids in glass houses. It is too bad that Myles Kennedy in the alphabet came after Kids in Glass Houses, because I would have loved, it would have been a little bit of a prank to have the Myles Kennedy review be here first, and I didn't talk anything at all about how that didn't really fit the format due to its music not being all that metal, what with Myles Kennedy serving up his southern rock tinged ballad heavy alternative metal, alternative rock. And then, after, it would have been really funny play that first. You'd be wondering at home, why didn't Minsk mention anything about how unfitting that is? And then drop that Kids in Glass Houses review with its like insanely dreamy cotton candy, like 80s nostalgia pop rock. Unfortunately, this was the order it went in, so I couldn't troll you guys. Maybe fortunate. I don't know. Yeah, but hey, it was really good, these selections despite all that. I enjoyed again the variety we went through today. I'm having a little bit of trouble picking my my summation, my number one, the one I recommend the most, because Adamantra and Grand Magus were both really strong choices of like my favorite album. And I will say that like album art wise, Grand Magus definitely wins. The kind of slightly trippy, slightly psychedelic, but then juxtaposed with some, the Viking theme album art was really evocative, and the color choices are really lovely. So art-wise, definitely Grand Magus wins here. And I do think I will also give it to Grand Magus the edge here a little bit in terms of my favorite album in general, music-wise, because they were both really strong, but Adamantra just kind of went a bit too long for its own good, and went out on a bit of a silly final note there, whereas Grand Magus really was lean and focused with its jams. It was a nice variety, really nice, clean, doomy, traditional metal there, and really got to the point. It was just a pleasure to listen to that, so I think that would be my recommendation of these. Of course, you don't have to listen to me, so if you did think that Adamantra fit you better, or maybe, some of the more intense music maybe hit you a little bit better than it did me, whatever you found here interesting, maybe Kids in Glass Houses surprised you as well, and you could open your heart to it, I don't know. But in any case, I hope you guys got a good tip on some music to listen to. Please look in the description for a Bandcamp link or other suitable one to support the artist in that case, if you would so like to do. Well, this has been it for this edition. November is looking really stacked with these albums, so we'll see what kind of mess I find myself in then. But, I'm having a good time. I hope you folks are. Please tune in again next time to see what we are talking about in November. Okay, see you then, everybody. Bye-bye.